You know, the people who don't think that Vince McMahon killed the industry in the 80s most likely feel that the industry was instead killed in the 90s. By this guy, the man you voted the most despised person in all of wrestling, Vince Russo.
I tend to agree.
Probably, and that's only my opinion.
Eric Bischoff had to have been on there at one point.
Really? Eric's not even on that list. Good for you, E.
I didn't even fucking make top 5.
Yes. Are you serious? I'm very proud of that. They're doing now. Do I get some kind of an award? Do I get one of those Pro Wrestling Illustrated little plaques? We get Apter up here. We shoot that. I'll smile.
Going back, Vince Russo was one of Vince McMahon's right-hand people to change the business from professional wrestling to sports entertainment. He spearheaded, along with other people in that company, the WWE magazine, the website.
Vince Russo. God, he's so fucking harmless. You know? I don't think, to me, to be despised, you have to actually do things with malice.
On a personal level, I love Vince Russo. I really do. I think he's, in a guy way, of course.
It's sort of like the trendy thing to pick. The trendy thing, it seems like the right pick just because why wouldn't you hate Vince Russo?
What is it like, what's it called, folklore, or what am I looking for? Is that what I'm looking for? These myths get created that somehow, some way, through folklore, become true. So there's all these things out there about me that people perceive and people think, and that's how you get the reputation. It's quite entertaining to me.
Yeah, Vince Russo takes a lot of heat, you know, but I really don't understand a lot of his booking period. So, you know, I understand why people, you know, they see some of their fans of their people that they, you know, grew up watching and loving, and they're doing something that's totally out of character for them, so they get pissed. So that's where I think a lot of that comes from.
Fans deserve good wrestling, and I'm not saying Vince Russo gave bad wrestling, you know, because I was never in the booking meetings. I don't know what he came up with and so came up with and all this stuff, or I don't know why maybe some of the execution might have not worked out. But on a personal level, Vince Russo was good to me. He's the reason why I'm sitting here doing this interview.
He's hated allegedly for killing parts of the business, okay? I think anyone who comes into a business like professional wrestling or sports entertainment isn't going to be perfect with everything he does.
When you have people that say it doesn't matter anymore whether we have baby faces or heels, and they believe it, and they're in charge, it's basically like a doctor saying we don't need a brain and a heart.
Vince chooses the creative direction he wants to go, chooses the people he wants to put in there, and then goes with it and actually sticks by that. And if you think about it, Vince was the first, I think, television writer instead of booker. So he always falls, you know, they never talk about the Brian Gewirtzes or the Ed Koskis or any of the other WWE writers. It's always Vince Russo, because I think that was the official handover from bookers like Dusty and Flair and all these other guys to the wrestling writer era that we're in right now.
I can see where fans would want to say number one, but it's a double-edged sword with me on Vince Russo. Yeah, he went to WCW, and from, you know, when WCW, he was there in WCW, you know.
I mean, think of it. I mean, he and Eric Bischoff ran WCW into the ground, and they're just doing the same thing with TNA. Because the last time I watched TNA was probably like a year ago, and I was watching saying, this is WCW circa 2001.
And Eric Bischoff's not on that list. Again, I have to question who got asked these questions.
Maybe I just am naive and I think too good about people in general. But I mean, people thought that I hate Vince Russo more than just about more than anybody at one time, and they were wrong.
I mean, I'm friends with Eric, and I barely like him.
a lot of people in the wrestling business can't differentiate personal from professional, and it is tough because I take my profession very personally, but you know, I mean, Vince Russo is not an evil human being and was not out to destroy anything, I don't think. I think he always, in his mind, thought he was doing something positive.
His arrogance, his behavior, and all his ideas sucked. So nobody respected him pretty much.
There's a lot of people who dislike him because of how he treated them and how he was very arrogant with them. Again, I only knew him for a short space of time and didn't really have anything to do with him, but didn't get on with him either.
Personally, Vince Russo is the reason why I was in WWE. You know, when I was first brought to WWE, Al Snow called me. Said, "Are you under contract to Paulie?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Are you loyal?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm loyal, but I mean, what's up?" And he goes, "Vince Russo has an idea for you to join the Job Squad. Would you want to do it?" I was like, "Sure." So Vince Russo, number one, is the reason why I even went to the WWE, and I was able to make a living. I was able to support my family, who had supported me through all my, wrestling endeavors, which made no money up until that point. I made some money in ECW, but my indie years leading up to ECW, and my grandparents and my mom made sure I was doing this. I was going to follow through with the wrestling thing. Vince Russo is the reason why I was able to give back to my family.
It's actually Russo who got me to come back to TNA. I hated Russo, and Eric Watts had convinced me that he was saved and he was born again, and that he really wanted me to come back because he thought I could really help TNA get national exposure and get a deal like they did, with Spike. And when I came to meet him, he told me he was leaving. After I talked to him for like an hour and a half, I was like, "All right, Vince, you really did change it. You actually have changed who you were, and you're getting better. So why are you leaving?" He's, "Well, it's just time for me to leave. I just want to get away from it. I want to do something around the whole Christian thing." It's like, man, at the end I was like, I wish he didn't leave, But then he went back and did his thing, and I didn't really watch enough to know why they hate him, but I know how come I hated him in the first time.
I don't know about everybody else, but I like Vince. And I mean, I said that before, but I don't know what problems other people had. The only time I laughed at Vince is when they wanted me to wear that shark boy mask in TNA. And Jarrett and Vince came up with it, and they thought it was gonna piss me off. And I actually put it over, and they got mad, because I was turning the mask around backwards, doing my mask and pulling it up like this over my head, and people started laughing at it. And then I came back in the back, I threw it at Jarrett, I said, "Nice try." And Vince was like, "Oh shit, that didn't work." So, I have never, like I said before, I've never had a problem with it. And I don't know what other people think, but, it's like the guy I get along with, everybody else hate.
I don't think he does anything with malice. I think that he does a great job of putting together angles and putting together verbiage and telling a story. But as far as the mechanics of, that's great. I love the idea. Give me the finish. You guys work that out. That's not how it works.
He was given a little bit too much power too soon, and it went to his head, and he thought he was like the god of wrestling. And it was just like, shut the fuck up. You used to, put pictures in a magazine. For him to go from, choosing pictures for a WWF Raw magazine to going down to, Atlanta and running the show is just pathetic, ridiculous. No, he had no respect from any of the boys.
He was always cool with me. Well, and I didn't have to deal with him a lot. Only in TNA for whatever times I was down there. But not one of those guys ever gave me a reason to hate him. I mean, I could see that, how they're in a position for other people to hate him, but not me.
He's one of my least favorite people. He's not my top of the list least favorite people, but he's up there. He's right up there.
A lot of people in a business hate Vito LaGrasso. Skull Von Crust. Yeah, a lot of people don't like him.
As number one, I'm surprised that that's not flip-flopped with Vince McMahon. I would have thought Vince McMahon would have been the first guy on the list. So if it's Vince Russo, there's something very inside people are thinking that I don't really see.
I don't know how Vince Russo and Vince McMahon aren't switched over, because Vince McMahon was the filter for Vince Russo. Vince McMahon also has put out a lot of stuff. I was a part of a couple of things that Vince McMahon came up with that, you know, hopefully is on your wrestle crap list.
If I get one of those slammies for that.